I have never seen more stubborn characters than Kaguya and Miyuki, but I love it. I truly, truly appreciate how stubborn they are because we get episodes like these. After last week's very stunning episode that had so much comedy, some serious character moments, the structure and just flow to the episode was pretty damn perfect. I love how each of the sections really connected to one another in the best way that we've seen. So coming into this week's episode, though I know it was going to be a good episode, I wasn't expecting it to match last week's episode, and honestly, this episode is 1 for 1 after last week's really stunning episode. Something I really appreciate is that the final stretch of this anime is clearly going in the direction of building up to this festival that they're all going to go to over their summer vacation, and how all of the little parts are really structured together and they're really building onto a more concise story, something that's a lot more structured than just random one-off gags. And I actually think they're managing to keep it as funny as it has been, while also having more story emphasis put onto the series, which honestly, comedy series that are really just about the funny gags and things like that, they have a hard time transitioning into more structured storytelling while keeping it funny. But the great thing with Kaguya-sama is there's always been a clear outline with the story to some degree. Just recently we've seen a lot more structure into building up to something which this season was building up to, the Firework Festival. And I have to say, this episode was great. The first chunk of this episode where they're fighting over who can eat the slice of cake, that shit had me dying. It is hilarious how you'll have these situations which are so basic. Oh, there's 2 slices of cake. One goes to you, and you, if you realize what was happening, probably wouldn't have ate that cake, but at the moment it seemed okay. But who's going to eat the cake? When both like the other, and they think that simple deeds like that, taking a nice possession from the other, is considered weakness. When you see situations like this, you really start thinking, at least I know I do, where you're like, imagine when they get married. What would their wedding vows be like? Who's going to take the vows first? Is Miyuki going to say them first, or is Kaguya? Because that is like, even once they admit they like each other, you know that the kind of who's going to wear the pants in the relationship, it would never truly stop. And that's what's hilariously adorable about these two lovebirds. I just love how ridiculous, sweet, and just dramatic this sequence was. You're seeing that both of them remember the smallest and simplest details that most people would. When Kaguya was first, starting off in the student council when she was much more cold, the president literally remembers what type of cake that she likes. And he keeps that in mind, being like, well, I can't eat it because you told me this. And I love the way they direct this, because they started off being like, oh, whatever, this means nothing. How do you remember something from so long ago? And then she'll turn around to scratch her forehead while she blushes and just feels so in awe. She's like, this is the most loving thing ever. I can't believe this. And then she'll go right back to him and be like, well, I remember something too. And she'll talk about how he never gets to have cake or presents or anything because Christmas time isn't that important. And they'll direct it to be exactly the same for the president. And holy hell, that was the sweetest, most adorable and stupid thing I have seen up till now in this series. That might be my favorite thing that's ever happened. Because not only is it adorable and hilarious, it is so stupid that they're so proud of themselves that they can't just appreciate that moment, which is truthfully very adorable. And you're like, oh, you actually really do care about me. You remember these smaller details. That really shows you really do put time and effort into caring about me as a person, but they're so proud they can't just embrace it. And I love you just getting progressively more and more freaked out in that situation. This man might have been the star of the episode. Even though he didn't have a lot to do with this episode, his additions to these scenes was hilarious. Like him in the first scene just being like, I am terrified, I gotta get Chika because only she can de-escalate this impossible situation. To then, because of his action of bringing Chika in, they can't feed each other cake at the end of this part. So then Chika eats it, being like, I'm the friend police. If you guys can't, be normal, then I'm gonna have to eat the cake, which is just like, oh my god. Chika, this is the one time I wish you didn't butt in. And it doesn't even feel like she was trying to be a troll. She literally was just trying to de-escalate this situation, which typically she's the only one who can do something. But this might have been the moment where they could have, put things aside and they would have been able to do something they both enjoy. Similar to the cat ear photo that kind of got ruined earlier in the season. This first part was so hilarious because I love how it directly connects to last week's episode where they wake up in the same bed together, and this just really was the icing of the cake because they know nothing happened, but they still have this pent-up anger and frustration and also kind of awe of what happened, but they can't admit anything. And I love how you have someone like Kaguya who's upset, for one, that he didn't do anything, but also that he was sleeping in her bed. And then you have Miyuki who's kind of in the same boat. They're both so mad, but for the simplest reasons, but they can't admit why they're truly mad. So then you'll get these little situations like arguing over a slice of cake, who can eat it first, and it makes them even more pissed off. It is such a hilarious sequence, and I love that middle section where Yu really shines. where you'll have these moments where Miyuki's talking with you, being like, I got this friend who has an issue, and everyone knows, like, whenever you approach someone being like, I have a friend, even a toddler can pretty much piece together what that means. But I love how Yu's being like, oh, you're not a cliche protagonist, I know you're not going to be that cliche. And I just love how he keeps having these outbursts being like, how dare she do this? This friend's in the right. Do you want me to talk to her? He just keeps bringing it up and up and up because he considers himself, he's like, I read enough rom-com manga, I can wiggle this around. And then you'll have Kaguya doing the same thing, but to a different character. And I love how each of the side, the female side and the male side, they think they're in the right, but then you'll have Kaguya and Miyuki both understand that really, he might be in the wrong and she might be in the wrong, but they're also a little too proud, and you'll just have these outbursts. The reactions were priceless. Kaguya, I've realized, is most adorable when she's both upset, flustered, as well very confused. When she has that very mixture of emotions where she doesn't really know how to go forward in a sequence, where she can't plan something to out-manipulate Miyuki because they both know what happened, and there's no way to really progress forward without the other admitting their faults. It's hilarious to have these moments because you just see the most adorable reactions ever from Kaguya, and I also love seeing the adorable reactions from Miyuki as well. That sequence of trying to figure out how they can move forward was really well done. It was less funny than the first section in my opinion, but it still had its fair share of hilarious moments, especially from Kaguya's reactions as well as Yu's outbursts. Those were ridiculous and I loved it. But in terms of what the middle section really did for me was it was really trying to structure the mending scene where they can both apologize, and I was really curious, would they? Like, would someone make a move to essentially make this all kind of go away? Because for Kaguya, she's both upset that nothing happened as well, she's upset that he was in her bed. So I love how when Miyuki kind of confronts her near the end of this section, he kind of says like, they both understand what the other is thinking for the most part. Sometimes they don't clue into what the other's feeling, but I love how he does say like, okay, I might have touched you. I touched you with a single finger. I touched you on your lips. And then to see that moment where she touches him back, like, it's such a stupid scene, but it's so goddamn romantic and adorable all at the same time because these lovebirds are so ridiculous and you love moments like these. And because they were using last week's episode, which was a very tightly structured episode, really propelling the story forward between our central duo here, I love how this episode, especially the first two pieces, were really about kind of mending what happened because they didn't blow it aside saying like, okay, they're fine, we're just going to go back to random comedy. No, they took that and actually made a story out of it, a character arc, which is something that you don't get to see, especially in rom-coms such as this that often, where a lot of times where you see series like Kaguya-sama, you expect an emphasis put on the comedy rather than the romance, but we're seeing that this series definitely has the balance between romantic as well as comedy, which honestly, most rom-coms, they aren't a rom-com. They're either a comedy or they're a romance with a little sprinkle of the other. Here, this is a 100% rom-com where you get an equal balance, and episodes like these, especially last week including this, are really showcasing the style and just the skill in the author and also the studio adapting this amazing source material. Once again, bring back something from the past where we were talking about a trip and where they could go. Chika, holy hell, this girl, I can't tell when she's trolling and when she's just being Chika, and that's part of her charm. This girl has so many vacations planned, but then she'll pull these cards being like, well, I gotta balance my school life, I gotta balance, education and fun, but then she has all these trips planned. This girl just can't make up her mind, and that's what's so funny and just frustrating about that scene, because both of them want to go on a vacation with all of them because that would be the perfect moment to basically get all the feelings out in the air. But then you'll have Chika just ruining everything, being like, well, you can't go anywhere because you can't do this without me, but then you'll have you just calling out the bullshit, being like, you gotta be kidding me. So you're saying you can go on vacations, but we can't? Screw you. And then she gets so mad. I'm surprised she didn't say she wanted to go home and die again, because that was just such a brilliant scene. And for the first time, Yu doesn't have to leave the council. He actually gets praised for what he says. But that just building up to that, where you just see them getting progressively more and more frustrated. Honestly, Kaguya was losing her mind because she's like, you can't convince the girl. Once she's made up her mind, we're screwed. No summer vacation for us. I love that. The reactions, holy hell. Every episode has good reactions, but this episode in particular, the directing was on point, especially when you see stuff like Miyuki being like, seeing so many how cute faces from Kaguya circling around. He can't figure out the formula. There's no way to have this trip work. No matter what he says, he'll be luring himself into her trap. Holy hell. This episode, the past two episodes, I love how tightly structured it is. The comedy is not letting up. This episode last week are equally funny as some of the best comedy before then. They're also adding in these tight character moments and just story progression, which you really don't get to see too often. The voice acting completely on point. I love Kaguya's embarrassment and also confusion. The way she layers that into her voice, the actor is hitting it out of the park. Yu killing it, Chika obviously killing it as well. Miyuki had some surprising lines as well. He really kind of showed his skill in this episode, especially when he was getting a little frustrated. over that cake sequence here. This series is remarkable and obviously is going to be in a favorites list in some capacity. Once the season fully wraps up, I'll figure out where, if it's going to be in like a top 25 or top 15 in my anime list here, but still, this series is remarkable. What started off as hilarious with such a strong cast of characters has just continued to push that cast of characters, adding in new personalities like you, while also showing that we can really have these interesting stories while still being equally funny as when we started off, which honestly I don't recall this ever happening from all the rom-coms that I've seen. I love romantic comedies. Comedy, romance, rom-coms, favorite genre in anime. I love them. This series is doing something remarkable, balancing the two genres so flawlessly that I can't even compare it to another anime, and I really, really hope that this gets at least a couple more seasons, if not a full adaptation, because this is such a splendid series that is doing something so unique that is making all the characters equally interesting while really having this interesting narrative flow. You really just don't get to see it too often, so I hope A1 will continue to adapt this, because this is a flawless series right now. I enjoy it, I love it, I can't stop thinking about it. Every single week, this is my most anticipated anime to watch, and usually each Saturday, I watch the episode twice. Late at night, I'm like, you know what, that episode of Kaguya-sama was pretty damn enjoyable, let's rewatch it. I don't rewatch many anime week after week, Kaguya-sama is one of them. Let me know what everyone thought of this week's episode of Kaguya-sama Love is War, your favorite out of the 3 stories. Where do you think that firework festival is going to go? Please no spoilers. If you have read the manga, let me know down in the comment section below. Remember, leave a like if you did enjoy this video, and also hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. But until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.